Call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Before we continue with our normal business, I have to note that on the consent agenda, items 5.03, contract for the Davenport Library at $39,900, and 5.04, contract EICC for $39,960 have been removed from the agenda. And the reason is that our Joel Franken will not be available to answer questions. So those two items will be set aside for another time. We'll move on to board priorities. And Director DeSalvo, would you please read those for us?
I'd be happy to. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. And direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you very much. And Director Snyder, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
Our mission statement reads, to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement reads, education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and our community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Are there any board reports? Director Hayes.
Since our last meeting, I have a couple bereavements to report. Mary Alice Walker, who was an employee of the district for quite some time, passed, and also the father of Jennifer Easton, who's a teacher at Eisenhower. She lost her father this summer. And last Wednesday, I believe it was, I stopped at a Back to Swellness event over to the Friendly House. And they were over there and they were doing physicals, they were doing haircuts, giving out backpacks and dinner. It was a packed house over there, so I was just really excited to see that community project going on, as well as one that's coming up this weekend for backpacks at United Neighbors, and one of the churches is doing it on the 24th. So there's a lot of community people that are looking forward to our children going back to school and sending them back prepared.
Thank you very much. Any other reports? All right, we'll move on to presentation. Mr. Scott.
So at this point, if I could have Matt, if you want to come up and take us through the presentation. Are you looking at, so you're not doing administrative reports?
I didn't have, we go board reports and presentation. Administrative.
All right, Mr. Pulford, you're going to wait a while then. Okay. I thought Dr. Goldstone would be here until late at night. So she's somehow pulled a couple of strings in as early on the agenda. So Dr. Goldstone, if you'll please come up and talk about Grow Your Own.
Thank you so much. It is a program that I'm very excited about, and so I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to present our first graduate of Grow Your Own. Some board members may not be familiar, but we came to the board, I think it was 3 years ago, asking for support of finances to identify paras in the district that would go to school and receive a bachelor's degree in education. Erica Smigo is our first graduate. She graduated in May of this year and student taught second semester. So, Erica Smigo.
Thank you. I just want to thank the school board for the opportunity, and Dr. Tate, Dr. Goldstone, and Jabari have been great mentors for me throughout this process. I grew up in Davenport. went to Davenport schools, and I'm looking forward to spending time with my new students this fall. I got a job. I'll be teaching ESL at Keystone, Mid-City, Walcott, and Buffalo. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Director Hayes.
Erica, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
This is a far cry from our previous employer, but I'm just so happy for you.
Thank you.
Director Snyder.
No, also I wanted to say congratulations. And when we first rolled this program out, or I guess decided, I think I remember that meeting in particular. I think one of the questions they asked for some money, and the kind of consensus of the board was, well, that doesn't sound like very much. Don't you need more than that? Because we believed in this program. And when did you, were you right away then involved in that program, or how soon did you jump into it?
When it first came out, I applied, went through the application process, the interviewing, and then when I was accepted, I jumped right in, and I've been going to school full time, at least 16 credits every semester while working.
Wow.
And I'm a single mom, so it's been a long road.
Well, congratulations, and I hope you have many, many excellent years here in Davenport.
Thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
Well, I just concur. Congratulations, and way to go with everything that you have going on. That's amazing. And I'm very excited that you'll be here in the Davenport Community Schools teaching our kids now. That's wonderful. We're really, really glad you're here. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
Yeah, it's so rewarding to be able to have these ideas bubble up in terms of what can we do to work with from within, to support our people, and to actually see then the fruition of it actually happening. We had this great idea, but you are the ultimate success of what we had thought about. So very proud of you,
Thank you.
and good for us as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Mayfield.
First, I'd like to congratulate you. It's quite a feat. Definitely when you have a child or children and you have to support them and go to school at the same time. So I think it's a great thing you've done. I hope that you're the first of many that are able to achieve what you sort of set the standard for. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, I want to say thank you and congratulations also. And I was trying to reflect back on the original presentation. I think Dr. Goldstone was made by you and Deb Miller, if I recall properly.
And Jabari.
And Jabari, okay, and that was some time back. And so I wanted to acknowledge wherever the idea came from, but all of your leadership and participation in that to make this thing happen. And so thank you as well, and everybody that must have been working with you to make this happen. So
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have 2 open forum requests, And you'll each have 2 minutes. We'll start with Tara Witherow, followed by Bob Babcock. And come on up, speak here, and give us your name and address at the microphone before you start.
Hi, my name is Tara Witherow, 1715 West Garfield Street, Davenport, Iowa. I have children at North Williams and Adams. And we wanted to talk today about solar energy. I know you guys are going to talk about it soon. It's coming up, and it's already on your minds. And I wanted to applaud the Davenport School District for its previous efforts in sustainable energy by installing geothermal in so many of the buildings. I was happy to hear last year that you were entertaining the idea of moving forward on a solar energy project. However, then I learned that the plan was tabled, so I'm here tonight along with some other residents to urge the board to continue to develop this project. And we have 3 main reasons that we support solar installation. Cost savings. The school system, as of 3 years ago, was spending over $1 million annually on electric usage, but a solar energy system can pay for itself within a decade, and there are a variety of financing options available, including power purchase agreements, grants, or public fundraising. Because electricity costs increase every year, your savings will increase over time. And number 2, educational opportunities. There are school systems using their solar energy system to educate and train students. Students in STEM programs could analyze solar cells, backup batteries, etc. Vocational students could learn how to install converter systems or solar panels. Environmental clubs could help advance additional projects. There could be research programs that coordinated with colleges or government agencies. And the last reason that we have was that green energy is good for the environment. It's estimated that if the school system replaced its current electric usage with sustainable energy, 138,000 metric tons of CO2 could be offset over 20 years. This would be equivalent of growing 444,000 trees, and it would avoid burning 98,500 tons of coal over the same period. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this issue. We hope that you'll study all the ways in which sustainable energy, such as solar, could save our taxpayers thousands of dollars over time, provide educational opportunities for students, and help reduce the carbon footprint of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Tara. Bob?
It's good to see folks. It's been a while. I'm Bob Babcock at 2421 North Gaines in Davenport. Been thinking about this and talking with people about this with the Davenport schools for well over a couple of years. And when I was preparing these remarks, I was thinking that I had 3 minutes instead of 2, so I'll have to cut some out of it. But the reality is that I'm looking at this as acting locally but thinking globally. We rely on a lot of energy from the Middle East. We've been spending lots of money on our military, protecting our energy supplies there, and it's very costly. But if Davenport schools can be part of embracing a sustainable local energy program, I think we'd see a lot of savings, including, of course, the savings to the schools of over $1 million a year, which will grow by time. Okay, you can call me an old tree hugger, but I do think that we have an environmental issue here. And as a matter of fact, there was a recent report put out by the federal government, 841 pages, showing the effects of global warming in this country alone. And we're talking about droughts, we're talking about floods, we're talking about severe weather, and so on. We need to be good stewards of this planet, especially for future generations, our kids, and kids around the world. It's incredibly important that we do that. And you know something? We're not looking at anything new for any school district. Waco Community Schools down in southeastern Iowa is saving about 90% of its energy costs with solar alone. The Maharishi University Management Sustainable Living Center gets all its energy from solar and wind, and it feeds off the excess to other departments. We can do this, and I think we need to do this, I think, for the sake of our kids, not only in terms of sustainability for the planet and their future, but also in terms of their education. the financing is there. If those schools can do it, certainly Davenport schools are good enough to do it. I just want to really encourage you to do that, and maybe I'll just email you the copy of my remarks that I wasn't able to use this evening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Bob. And thanks again to both of you, Tara and Bob, for presenting your perspectives. They really are important to the board and to our community. Thank you again. We'll move on to upcoming events. Director Kluhl, would you please read those for us?
No. On the 17th of August at 5:30 p.m., the local school board candidate forum will be held here in this very room. That is the Jim Hester boardroom. And we have 5 of our 6 candidates who will be participating in the event, 3 of whom are here this evening. So we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. On August 22nd, 5:30 p.m., the local school improvement advisory committee will be meeting here in the Jim Hester boardroom. August 24th, Thursday, is the first day of school. August 28th, 6 p.m., regular school board meeting here in the Jim Hester boardroom. September 4th is a holiday, and the building will be closed. Tuesday, September 5th at 5:30 p.m. will be the committee of the whole meeting, and that will be here also in the Jim Hester boardroom. On September 11th at 6 p.m., the regular meeting of the school board will be held here in the Jim Hester boardroom. And September 18th, and being the 3rd Monday instead of the 4th Monday, we will hold our annual organizational and regular meetings at 6 p.m. here in the Jim Hester boardroom. And that change in date is due to the Iowa Code regulations, which require a new board meeting to be held at that time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And remember again that 5.03 and 5.04 are not part of the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following resolution on the adoption of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the Secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the Treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of July 6, 2017 through July 19, 2017. Special release was approved by the President with the following voided check, that being number 348351, payable to Bettendorf Community School District in the amount of $3,230.50. Reason being that was voided and replaced. And also July 20th, 2017 through August 9th, 2017. Sorry for that kind of jumbled sentence, but I think you get the picture.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move into the superintendent report. Mr. Scott.
All right, I just want to compliment Matt, because when we were in the wrong area, he just stood right up. So when I called his name, he's like, okay, I'll present right now. And so, Matt, if you could acknowledge the other people involved in the video also, and then just tell us a little bit about how it got started. And
Sure. Every summer, we work with all the high schools to interview graduates on graduation day. So it's myself, Rachel Steiner. We kind of gather them all up and work with them. And our videographer is actually a Central High alumnus named Peyton Shoemaker. And the project was finished up sometime in July, several weeks ago, and Dr. Tate saw it, and he said, I have to show this to the board as part of my superintendent's report. And he's on vacation, so he said he just told us to go ahead and run with it. So yeah, we'll show the video tonight. It's one of my favorite things to do each year. We get to hang out with the students on their big day when they get to walk across the stage. We ask them questions, and they talk about all their wonderful memories regarding their teachers, what they think is outstanding qualities of their teachers. They talk about, I'm trying to think of all the different sections that we went through. All the opportunities that they took advantage of, what those taking advantage of those opportunities, what it brought them. Sometimes a world championship in the state of, or the situation of the West High combustible lemons. And then they end with telling us what they're off to do after high school. It's really fun. So before it plays, just real quickly, I ran a little metrics report on it today. On our own Facebook page, that's people who actively like the Davenport Community Schools on Facebook. It was seen over 3,600 times. And this is one of the projects where we actually buy a Facebook ad to get it outside of that bubble, so to speak, to the rest of the community in the Quad Cities and some other outlying areas. And it was seen over 12,000 times, which is really kind of crazy. So yeah, go ahead and play it, Joe.
Graduation day is always a wonderful day for everybody. Parents, the students, the community, the school board and I sit on stage and we watch every student come by, and I shake each hand because I'm extremely proud of what they have done and what they will become. Time after time, students will tell us they got through because of a teacher, because they care, because they challenge them, because they know what they need, and they're more than just teachers. They're friends, they're mentors, they're people who guide them along the way through life.
The high schools that I found have had incredibly generous teachers, generous with their time, their efforts. They'll set up review sessions, they'll stay after hours, they're always opening, welcome, always smiling and friendly.
The more involved you become, the more you realize that the staff is there to help encourage you and support you and help you grow as a person, not only academically in the classroom, but also kind of giving you a gist of what life beyond high school is going to look like.
She was just really supportive, and whenever I was down and out, she could tell. She tried to do everything possible to get me to where I am right now.
They all always made sure that you got everything you needed and always helped, always went the extra mile to do the most they could for you, and I'm very grateful for all that.
There are really, really passionate teachers at Central that know their subject and that want to share their information, share their wealth of knowledge that they have in their brains with you.
Their will to challenge you, I think, was pretty special for me because I like to be challenged just so that I can be a better person and get the kind of grades I want to attend a really good college.
Coming from being homeschooled, I didn't necessarily have those connections, and I hadn't really done sports before, but the coaches and everybody else were really accepting. You were able to come in as a first-year athlete with not much experience and still be able to progress and excel.
Teachers are amazing. They're like one-on-one with you. They love to get to know their students. And then the staff as well, counselors are amazing. I wouldn't getting into college and doing all my college stuff would be so hard. I wouldn't have probably been able to do it if it wasn't for my counselors.
They push you farther because they know what you're capable of doing. And for me,
the road to success is believing in yourself, and to have other people believe in you, that's just something beautiful.
As a district of distinction, our job is to meet every student's need. I mean, we have more than 200 courses in our 4 high schools. And whatever a student wants to do, whatever their interest is, we want to meet it.
I was really involved in Talented and Gifted, otherwise known as TAG. Through that I did mock trials, Scholastic Bowl, I competed in Science Bowl, and other academic activities like that.
I participated in marching band, orchestra, musical pit, show choir, so I pretty much did all the music there was to do.
I did track my freshman year along with baseball, football. I stuck with baseball and football throughout my entire high school career. I did National Honor Society my junior or senior year and do a lot of community service, which was really nice.
Some of the things I was interested in high school were computer science. It's a field I'm very passionate about. I worked with the city of Davenport in the class to develop an app for them for the historical trails.
Future Teachers Club, Spanish Club, I was in Student Senate, and then Junior Class Officer, and then I was in track and field for the first 2 years and then swimming all 4.
I'm part of the dual graduation program, and so what that means is that I have my associate's degree already. We actually had our ceremony last week where I got my associate's degree before my high school diploma.
I was a part of the Creative Arts Academy. It was kind of a newer thing at Central when I first went into school. And going into that really helped me pick what I want to do with my career setting, what I want to do with my whole life.
I dropped Shadow Mirror Clips for many reasons, but for me the biggest reason is because I want to change the world. That's, I'm graduating, going on to college, and in any way I can gain experience, knowledge. I want to change the world, make it a better place.
It's really important for people to understand that these students have had the opportunity, and if you're not taking advantage of that, then really you've missed that. So we push very hard. We have counselors that talk to each student and try to find out what are your interests, where you're going, and how can we be a part of that.
I've been on the robotics team, the Combustible Lemons, and this year we've advanced to the World Championship. This was a huge honor in itself, and we were just so excited to go and be there. This has been the seniors' goal since freshman year because our group of seniors have actually never been to World, so this was our last chance and that was our goal. So when we got there, we were having fun competing, but then they announced that we were a finalist for Inspire, and everyone was just amazed, and we were just happy to be one of the 4 finalists. And then when they called our name, telling us that we won the World Championship, we were all crying and screaming and in tears. So it was really fun.
In the state of Iowa Microsoft Office Specialist competition, I won first in the state, and I'll be going to Orlando this year in order to compete with the other state champions. I went to the National Student Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C., and that was an amazing experience. We got a tour of the Pentagon. We got to meet Director James Comey, which is a controversial figure.
So one of the biggest projects of mine at North has been the Worth Less campaign. And I got to go to Des Moines, I got to talk to the governor, talk to some legislators, and it was just overall a really, really cool experience. Getting to meet with the governor, getting to talk to him about political issues was definitely very, very educational for me.
I applied for the Herbert Hoover Uncommon Student Award, and I was one of the 3 finalists from the state of Iowa, and I received a $6,000 scholarship.
So I participated in the Student Built Homes program. It's basically, you go in there and we have one instructor and there's about 9 or 10 kids, and you start from the foundation up and you build the home all the way through shingling, plumbing, electrician, furnishing, everything.
I mean, I've been to state 4 years, and I've been working at chipping away at that long jump title since my sophomore year. So it was finally really nice to go out on top my senior year.
I was selected to be a Senate page, and that meant that during my second semester of my senior year, I would move to Des Moines during the week and work for the state Senate.
I sent a picture to the Scholastic Art Awards, and it went nationally and won a gold medal in New York, and I will be honored at a ceremony in Cardigan Hall.
We're so proud of many of our students going to some of the best schools in the entire nation. We got one going to the United States Military Academy at West Point, and another to Johns Hopkins, and we've just got students doing great things that are going into the trades and into the military. And the key thing is that each have a pathway to success now because they're graduating from high school and they're graduating from a great district.
Next fall, I'm going to University of Northern Iowa to major in early childhood education with an endorsement of special ed.
I am headed to West Point, looking to study environmental engineering. After my 4 years at West Point, I'll be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
I plan to go to Columbia College Chicago. I'm in the honors program up there, and I plan to double major in theater with a concentration in directing and dance.
This fall I'll be attending Dubuque to study computer science, and I hope to be a software engineer.
I'm going to be studying interior design, photography, and business at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. And hopefully after a year I'll be able to transfer to their location, either in Hong Kong or Lacoste, France, to study there.
I got a full ride scholarship to play basketball at University of Iowa, and I leave actually next week to start to be a freshman.
First, I'm getting my CNA over the summer so I can get a good paying job. And then after that, I'm going to Blackhawk for 2 years, get my associates in the physical therapy program, and I'll go on to get my bachelor's and master's at the University of Iowa.
I'm going to University of Dubuque, go Spartans, but I am going into criminal justice law, prosecution, and FBI profiling and law enforcement.
Well, I've got a full ride presidential scholarship to the University of Iowa, where I plan on studying environmental engineering.
Next fall, I'm headed off to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. I'll be studying biology, hopefully going pre-med, and then eventually becoming a pediatrician.
I'm already sworn in with the National Guard actually, so I leave September 19th for basic training, and I'm going to be a 91 Bravo mechanic.
I'll be going to the University of Iowa to study economics. And my goal at this point is to get my PhD from the London School of Economics, in economics of course. And I'd like to write my doctoral thesis on the economics of space travel.
So now that I have my associate's degree, I plan on attending St. Ambrose University, where I will get my bachelor's degree in secondary education and then minor in art, so I can hopefully come back to the district and be a math teacher and potentially an art teacher.
So on this graduation day, I wish all of our students the best of luck. We're proud of them, and we know that they're going to be successful in their future.
So the video, as you can see, could have went on for an hour, right? We had a lot, and that's just a lot of the great things that are going on. And every year it just gets a little bit better, and I think it's just a great showcase of what our students have done and where they're headed all over the world. And do you guys have any questions for?
Yeah, I think we're running pretty good on our timing, and this was pretty impressive. And so if there are any comments or questions by the board, I'd open it up. If not, then I'll start talking. No, go ahead, Director Kluhl.
Matt, did I miss it? The videographers were from Creative Arts Academy?
Yes, one gentleman named Peyton Shoemaker. Not the Creative Arts Academy, he's in his mid-20s. He graduated several years ago from Central.
Okay. Is he one of those guys that has gone on to produce film, short film?
Yeah, he's a local guy who works with Joshua Ford, and he's traveled all over the country doing projects like this. It's really nice to not worry that we're not going to, we know we're going to get all this material, and I just let him do his thing. I don't really have to direct him too much. And recently I've kind of taken over the editing duties myself. It kind of taught me some tricks in the post-production part of things, and done a lot of that on my own, but he's great to work with.
Great, homegrown.
Anything else, Director DeSalvo?
I can choke this back. I know. Moved one of those kids to Iowa yesterday, and 2 of them are in the honors class today. So go Davenport Community Schools.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much, Matt, and everybody. I was looking at our belief statements, and I'm not going to read them all, but the board really does think about, it's all about the students. And I believe that our whole district does as well. We've got just some fantastic people throughout the district, teachers, administrators, of course, fantastic leadership with Art, and I wish he was here tonight, but we'll thank him at another time. But I just wanted to say that these students are just amazing, and the things that our district can do to help them, it is very heartwarming, and it must be a true joy for you and Rachel and your whole group to go ahead and produce that. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's it.
I've got
Do
a
you have
couple other
more?
things.
Okay, go ahead.
Our teachers, all our teachers are coming back on the 21st, and we are going to be showing the video at all of our high schools as part of our kickoff for all the principals are going to show that. And then we've already kicked off the year because we've had a couple BSAT sessions already where we've had over 200 teachers and administrators back, and we have met over at the Rogalski Center at St. Ambrose and had a couple high-energy days over there, already setting the plan forward for this year. And that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding a resolution to conduct a public hearing for the sale of Lincoln Elementary?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following resolution. The resolution is for the public hearing for Lincoln Elementary. Whereas Davenport Community School District is the owner of certain real estate located at 318 East 7th Street, Davenport, Iowa 52801, and more particularly described on Exhibit A attached here too. Whereas Davenport Community School District has received multiple offers to buy the above described property, and whereas Davenport Community School District is considering the sale of the real estate and is required to hold a public hearing on the proposed sale pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 297.22. Resolved that a public hearing shall be held on August 28, 2017 at 6 p.m. for the purposes of considering the sale of the real estate owned by the school district at 318 East 7th Street, Davenport, Iowa 52801. Further resolved that the Secretary shall publish a form of notice of sale of real estate and notice of public hearing in the Quad City Times at least once, not less than 10 days, but not more than 20 days prior to the date of the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding a resolution to conduct a public hearing for the sale of the Achievement Service Center?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
Administration recommends the board approve the following resolution. Resolution for public hearing, Achievement Service Center. Whereas the Davenport Community School District is the owner of certain real estate located at 1606 Brady Street, Davenport, Iowa 52801, and more particularly described as Exhibit A attached here too. Whereas Davenport Community School District has received multiple offers to buy the above described property, and whereas Davenport Community School District is considering the sale of the real estate and is required to hold a public hearing on the proposed sale pursuant to Iowa Code 297.22, resolved that the public hearing shall be held on August 28, 2017 at 6 o'clock p.m. for the purpose of considering the sale of the real estate owned by the school district at 1606 Brady Street, Davenport, Iowa. Furthermore, resolved that the Secretary shall publish a form of notice of sale of real estate and notice of public hearing in the Quad City Times at least once, but not less than 10 days, but not more than 20 days prior to the date of the public hearing. Adopted on August 14, 2017.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Mayfield.
Even though I voted for this public hearing, I plan on hopefully talking that time to give my viewpoint. I don't think this is really the time to do that. Because basically this just gets it before the public, give them an opportunity to judge the facts as to what they are. So I just wanted to mention that.
I want to clarify that this resolution that we're making tonight is only establishing that there will be a public hearing on the 28th.
I'm aware.
Okay.
That's what I just mentioned. I
Okay.
don't know if you understood me or not.
Well, I just wanted to clarify it, just to make sure. So, okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of SU insurance contract?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the SU insurance contract in the amount of $315,915 for equipment breakdown insurance.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
I have one question. In the cost of this insurance is $315,915, and when I read the explanation in the insurance contract section, it says last year we had spent $86,000 in in fact, it just said expense costs $86,000. I was curious what that is, and then it talked about some other fees. It talked about our aggregate liability of $1,784,000. I would like an explanation of kind of how those numbers fall in line, and did we have this insurance last year? I guess I got a few questions. So.
We started this insurance last year, but we started it mid-year. And the $86,000 refers to the previous year, and that's how much we spent in supplies and other needs for those copy machines. And so that's an expense that we would not incur the next year because it's covered under the insurance policy. And the other is we've got other expenses that are associated with those machines that would normally be covered under a maintenance contract. And so instead of using that maintenance contract, we go through the insurance company and then they cover those costs. And that's the figure that's over the $107,000. So we come just about where we've saved the general fund budget, $200,000, by going to this insurance breakdown program, which is paid for out of the management fund.
Okay, that helps a little bit, but to me it still sounds like we're spending $315,000 to save $200,000. What am I missing?
Right now, that's correct. That is what it is, and I expect that gap is going to get closer because of the fact that we were starting out the program brand new. I think it's taken a little while to get used to what the process is, to start understanding what's covered under that contract, what's not. The other thing that we happen to also do at the same time is we just got into brand new leases, and so all of the machines in our buildings are brand new. So they're not going to have the breakdown costs, the maintenance costs that are normally associated with machines. I think as the years go and those machines get older, obviously we're going to be making more maintenance calls, and then you're going to see the amount of savings is going to increase because instead of coming out of the general fund, that all comes out of the management fund.
Okay.
Did you have any more?
No.
Other comments or questions? I guess I will. I'm always intrigued if we can save general fund dollars. And yet, trying to understand what you said, if we're leasing from somebody else, another party.
Correct.
Do we lease all of them from that?
Yes,
party?
we do. Yes.
And so as part of the lease, do they have responsibility for preventive maintenance or anything like that? Or maintenance, upkeep, anything?
No, typically when you have a lease, it's usually you have an amount that you pay for the lease, you have an amount that you pay for the maintenance cost. And when we bought or leased the copiers, got into a new contract, we asked them to split that out so that those maintenance costs would not be part of our lease cost, so that we could use this insurance to pay for that instead. Typically, when you get your lease amount, you don't know how much of it is for the maintenance and how much of it is just for the overall lease. But we asked them to split that out for this purpose so we could use this fund.
My experience is that most insurance companies won't lose money.
Correct.
So that intrigues me also, because it's like, well, if they won't lose money, then are we... I mean, there's a good reason that you've brought this, and you believe that this is the right thing to do. It's just, it just kind of goes against my grain to insure something that if I'm going to pay more for insurance than the cost.
And that's why, and I had put in the memo that we want to look at it again at the end of this fiscal year, because if we don't see that gap closing between the amount that we pay in a premium and what our savings are going to be, then I don't see with going forward with the program, then we don't renew it for the following year. But since it's still in its infancy stage and we haven't had it for that long, that's why I'm recommending that we go for it again this year, and to see if, you know, we're coming any closer to making that gap between what we're actually paying and what we're saving. Because I too, if that isn't there and it doesn't sound reasonable, then I'm perfectly fine with saying we won't continue this program for another year.
Okay. A different question we've talked about the value of general fund dollars. Can you express the relative value of a general fund dollar savings compared to a management fund expenditure dollar? Can you say one is worth more than the other? And if you could, can you characterize what that is?
I don't know how I would go about trying to value the dollar out of the general fund versus the management fund.
All right. Well, I'll just say that I believe general fund dollars are worth more than management fund dollars. So, okay. Anything else, Director Hayes?
Now, if we're leasing the machines and not owning them, wouldn't the company be responsible for any breakdown costs?
Typically, that's the case, but the company is partnering with the insurance company that we're with, so they're very well aware of splitting those maintenance costs out so that it is not part of that lease cost. So in other words, it's not unusual for them to do that when we ask them to do that, because they know we're going to be running those maintenance costs through this insurance program.
Now, in addition to these costs, like, are we paying additional costs like overage, or do they give us like X amount of copies? And they give us
a certain number of copies, just like any typical lease. And if you go over that, then yes, there's a charge for that.
What's that charge?
It's like 0.0035 cents per copy that we go over.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Director Snyder.
I am just having a very difficult time even contemplating spending spending $315,000 to save $200,000. I just can't see from a board perspective where this is fiscally responsible at all. So is there anything else I'm missing?
At this point, no, other than the fact, like I said, that since this program is still so new, that I expect that the amount that we are going to save this year is going to be more than what we did last year, because I think we will have more usage of that insurance part of it. Again, for the maintenance cost and for the supplies and equipment that they provide that we can now take out of that insurance policy. I would certainly think that it's going to be more than the $200,000.
Okay.
Anybody else? I was curious, one more thing. I was thinking about all this, and the way that they approach this, I don't know if they have more buying power or anything like that, so that their costs are less than our costs would be to do the same thing. You're just going to claim insurance when something happens, and then they'll go ahead and cover it, kind of. Do you use your own vendors, or how does that part work?
We use our own vendors, and then that information is shared with the insurance company, and then instead of us paying those costs for the maintenance service call that's made, the insurance company pays for that.
Okay. All right. Any other? Oh, Director Snyder.
Do we have any idea what we would be looking at as far as administrative costs for filing these claims?
We don't actually file the claims. When the company comes out and does the service call or brings us supplies, they actually file the claim with the insurance company. Then the insurance company sends us a report to let us know that a claim has been filed. But administratively, we don't have to do any of that filing.
Okay.
Director Hayes.
Is there a deductible that we would pay with those claims?
No.
It seems like you got to trust the vendors a lot if they're going to file the claim for you.
Certainly. Yeah, we would.
And so we have that trust.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can imagine that there would be ways to abuse a system like that.
We can very easily spot check reports that we've gotten from the vendor to call buildings or to find out if there were service calls that were made that weren't turned in.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, we'll call for the vote. Let me. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
No.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
No.
Director Mayfield. And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. May I have a motion regarding approval of MJ Care contract?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board approve the contract with MJ Care as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Let me just get to it here. I just had a real quick question or concern. It says basically that they're billing 5% of the revenues, and so that comes at the end of a year or something. Is that, or how does it work?
Okay, that's a good question. So they bill us monthly, and they base that on that month's net that we bring in. So we pay them monthly for 5% of whatever net amount we bring in. So it's 5% total over the course of the year. It's always a stable 5%.
Is it all Iowa?
It's all Iowa Medicaid. Mm-hmm.
And it's worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. We're projected this year, and we don't have our final figures yet. We're still waiting. The state is still holding a batch of the bills that have come in from different school districts right now. So we don't know what our projected final net will be, but we're going to be somewhere between $2.375 million and $2.5 million. And that takes a lot of work, I want to tell you, on the part of our special education staff in the buildings. They do a remarkable job of doing the documentation, and then the work that happens within our office, the department.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Director DeSalvo.
There's a comment in here about going out for RFP next year.
Yes.
Is there a reason why we're not doing that now?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Through our own informal internal audit this past year, we realized that our documentation wasn't up to where we needed it to be. And so one of the most critical components of Medicaid billing is ensuring that you have the coding correct for billing purposes. And we weren't always internally getting that done. So I think the last time I was here, I talked with the board about the fact that we were really taking a hard look at this, and we had dedicated a specialist to take this on full time to really do a good job of trying to ensure that our documentation is correct. We're still in that process. We're making great gains with that. We are anticipating that we'll most likely be up for a federal audit within the next year or two. Our time is coming. It just hasn't arrived yet. So we want to be as prepared as we can be, and we feel right now that the continuity of continuing with the same company is critical in ensuring that we're ready for that. We're actually anticipating it'll be this next year, but we don't know yet. But that's why we want to continue with the continuity, and we feel after this coming year that we'll be in a good position and a solid position, feeling very good about how we're doing with our billing, and we'll go out for an RFP at that time.
Anybody else? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Mayfield. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of Eastern Iowa Community College contract?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation for the contract from Eastern Iowa Community College for college credit courses offered to eligible high school students for the 2017-2018 school year. Costs are as follows. Concurrent enrollment, 25% of tuition per student plus books, materials, fees, and instructor cost if EICC instructor. Career Academy, full program tuition plus books and supplies. College Connection individual registration, CCIR program, 60% of the current online tuition plus books, materials, and electronic content.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I'm curious about what, is this the dual credit? Is this AP classes? Is this,
It's all of our.
it's
of our
all,
classes.
everything?
Mhm.
Okay. I thought we got some grants for some of these programs, like the dual enrollment and,
Not that I'm aware of.
okay.
Anything
Marshall.
else? Who-
Marshall.
Director Kluhl.
Marshall.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
I just wanted to let you know that for those concurrent enrollment classes, we do get additional funding from the state. It's a weighted funding, so it's not the true full per pupil, but depending on what the class is that's taken, we do get additional funding for that. So maybe that's what you were thinking of.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Mayfield.
So for clarity, this actually pays for all the services provided by Eastern or the district in general, not just.
Yeah, I believe this is a contract for all of our classes, and so we can't say exactly what it's going to be for this coming year because we don't know the student enrollment for every class, and so that's why the projection's on there of what we spent in the previous years. But there was a small increase for the current year, but yes.
I wasn't aware that AP classes were included.
Oh, I'm sorry if I said AP classes. I didn't mean AP classes. Just all of our courses with Eastern Iowa. So whether it was with the North group that goes through, or any of our classes, whether it's West, Central, even at Mid-City.
Anybody else? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. I have a motion regarding approval of change order for Estes Construction.
Mr. President.
You're closer to the seat of power. Go ahead.
I move the board approve the change order for Estes Construction in the amount of $218,307.53.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Gosa.
Since you're pressuring me. This change order is for J.B. Young, correct?
For J.B. Young, yes.
It's pretty early on in the project to already start on this, right? Or is it just some stuff that was missed when they were bidding it?
No, these were a part of the original budget. As you know, we bid several bid packages in order to get some things done in order for our first floor tenants to be able to move in and occupy the first floor. Among the things that the city required was some fire code upgrades. This is primarily associated with creating a rated stairwell. We're having to change all the doors in the stairwells. It was part of the originally anticipated code compliance cost, but the particulars were not yet known and drawn and so forth for bid until after the first bid package was awarded. And so it was bid and prices obtained for this change order for those costs primarily associated with fire rating the stairwells.
Okay. Now, this change order, Estes submitted this, and it has multiple different contractors on it.
There are a number of trades involved.
So, this is a GC over here?
It is a general contractor.
So then we're not going to get a bunch of different change orders from a bunch of different people. I like this a lot better.
No, we get all of the trades are rolled up into one change order.
As I was looking through that, I saw that. So, okay.
Director DeSalvo.
This may not be I'm just going to ask it. How can the stairwells be okay for the students that were there for so many years, but they're not okay now?
We changed use of the building.
Okay.
And this was similar to the fire sprinkler system at Lincoln, for example. When we ceased using it as a school, started using it as something else, we were required to install a fire sprinkler system. We used it as a school for many years. As long as it remained a school, that was fine. Once we changed the use of the building, then we have to bring it up to current codes. And so and there's been a number of negotiations with the city about both the fire code, ADA code. We're having to make some additional ADA improvements, other things. And that's a part of the cost of changing the use of a building.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, Director Mayfield.
Will this bring the total cost of the building up?
Somewhat. Most
additional.
of these expenses were anticipated and were in the original budget. There are some additional costs that have been added since the original architectural plan was approved by the board. We added pre-K to 2 rooms. That required adding the toilet rooms for the pre-K and so forth, so there's some additional costs with that. We made a decision to put the standby generator set in for because the district network would be there. There's a fire suppression system that's part of technology costs. Those things are in the technology budget, not in the architectural budget. So we're working very hard to provide everything the district needs in that building and keep the cost as low as possible. Early next month, there will be an item for you with a cost estimate and approval of the final phase of work, the 95% drawings. I have the team working on a budget update, so we'll provide to you at that time our estimated total cost at completion, including those additional costs that have been incurred because of code things or because of choices we've made, like adding pre-K. There's a playground for the pre-K that's I forget, $20,000, $30,000, something like that. So there are a number of things that have been added, but we'll be recapping all of that for you when you approve the final 95% drawing set for the renovations of the upper 2 floors next month.
If you'd help me with my memory here, what was the total cost initially?
The architectural program, if my memory serves, was 5.8 or 5.8, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
No.
Excuse me?
No.
Okay, thank you. Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of 2017-18 board calendar?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the 2017-18 board calendar as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I've got one question. I couldn't find the date for Pro Start, and I just wanted to make sure that if that's already established, have we acknowledged it in the board calendar?
Well, we don't usually acknowledge Pro Start in the board calendar.
No. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is what we do is if they've already established a date, that we try not to have a board meeting on that day.
I've not been notified of that. I can ask tomorrow.
What's the sense of urgency to approving this?
I've just had a few people ask for it.
Excuse me?
I've had a few people ask for it.
But there's no legal requirement or anything like that? Any other discussion?
I have always let them know, the person that's in charge of it now, I let them know when the board meetings are, so they are aware not to, schedule Pro Start during the night of a board meeting. So
I think, isn't Pro Start in March? Huh?
usually,
Yeah, because I mean, we take 3 Mondays out of March. So, okay. If there's no additional discussion, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
No.
Excuse me? No? Okay. Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Does he care? Pro Start was on a Tuesday last year.
Oh, it was?
It was March 14th.
Okay, great. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of policies?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the policy committee, I move that the board approve the policy committee's recommendation on the following policies: 305.01 school food service program and 303.07, approval of payments of bills for goods and services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
Wanted to give a real brief overview on both of these. 305.01 is a policy, well, actually is a policy that's been in place, but a while back we approved policy 405.01, and it was brought to our attention that technically that was in the wrong location as far as the 400s. So all we did was add it on to the tail end of 305.01 because it fell in line with, both of those policies fell in line with one another. So we didn't change any of the wording. We just basically, because we had a conflict with the 405.01, so we removed that from there and put it in 305.01, and that's all that is. 303.07 is a policy that the policy committee has been kicking around for probably a year, going back and forth with Iowa Code, with legal, with other practices of other districts, everything just to make sure we're in line, and we are. And so finally we've narrowed this down, removed a lot of unnecessary wording, simplified it, and got it cleared from legal that basically the practice that we're following and the practice this says is how we're currently practicing and is how we'll continue to practice.
Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
I was just wondering if there were any changes made to this policy based on review by the Poverty Committee?
Which one?
This policy is provided here.
305.01, the first one?
Uh-huh.
No, there was no changes. We literally just cut and pasted it right onto the end of 305.01.
Okay. I'm still not comfortable. I realize that we're writing policy, and policy has to wear blinders, basically. It can't be gray. It's got to be clear. When we say that students who do not, in 6 through 12, students who do not have sufficient funds shall not be allowed to charge meals or a la carte items until additional money is deposited in the student account. No alternate food or beverage items are provided to students in grades 6 through 12 in the case of insufficient funds. That still doesn't seem to line up with me with our concern about poverty in our district. And we're basically telling those kids, no money, no food. And I know that Dr. Tate talked about the fact that principals are watching those things and taking care of it as they can. I would sure like to see policy reflect our priority of poverty, and I don't see that this does that. So I still have a concern about that aspect of this policy. And I had hoped that the Poverty Committee might review that and have made some recommendations. Maybe that wasn't clear at the last reading.
Director Hayes.
Now, when we talked about it, it was clearly expressed that no one was denied a lunch. It's written here, there's, no one would be basically denied a lunch. If you did not have funds and were needing to eat, that you would have a lunch.
Problem is, our policy says that you won't. You will be denied. And I know that our policy perhaps is a bit different than how we do things in the schools. I understand that, and I appreciate that, and maybe that's the best we can do. I just want to register my concern that this doesn't marry up with our priority.
Director DeSalvo.
As I'm interpreting it, says they can't charge anything more, but we just won't let them charge anything they want, but a meal will be provided to them, but it's not going to be, they're not going to be allowed to charge it. So we're going to give them a meal, as how I'm interpreting this. Am I reading it incorrectly?
I read page 4, it says no alternate food or beverage items are provided to students in grades 6 through 12 in the case of insufficient funds.
Mr. Scott, could you clarify some of that, please?
So my knowledge on this would be that if we do give food, we charge the food. So there may be a principal's account. Principal may pay for that. They may have established an account. Again, those are for the students that we know, the students that advocate for themselves, that they don't have anything. But there would be something charged for every food that goes out.
Director Snyder.
This policy, as you're reading it here on the end, was approved by the board on 6/26 of 17. All we did was move the number. We had absolutely no reason to go back and look at the verbiage because we just approved it 2 months ago. So that's why we didn't look at it.
Yeah.
And I remember we hashed out this conversation at the time.
I did register a concern at the time, and at that time I thought that it was going to go before the Poverty Committee for review, and evidently it has, and this is what we have. So it is what it is. I'm concerned that it doesn't marry up with our priority of poverty. All the time we spend on poverty and we put out a policy like this, it concerns me. But at the same time, again, Dr. Tate said there are funds, there are things that principals are doing, and I don't think we can put that in policy. So this may be the best that we can do. But just as a case for the board to take into consideration that if we truly support reducing the impediment of poverty in our schools, our policy here is contradictory to helping students that are in poverty and have no resources to pay for food.
There's a lot of discussion here, and Mickey, you may want to come up to the microphone. Director Mayfield.
I guess my concern would be that officially the policy is saying if it's not paid for, you don't get it. Now, we do have many unofficial things that happen, whether it be teacher does it, or a principal, or any other entity. But I guess the problem is, as Rich is saying, we're proposing that if you don't have the money, you're not going to be given. And that does send a statement to the community. Even though there might be someone that will pay for it, they don't have to pay for it. It's no one's obligation to. And that is, as Rich said, sort of against what we're talking about in general when we're talking about making sure that all kids have food or something to eat. So the policy itself does state that no one will be given a meal without paying for it. So that's the hang up right there. It actually says that. So is that the message you want to put out to those that need? Can't pay, you don't eat.
Well, we will. There's just, yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll have plenty of chance to come up. Director Gosa.
I wholeheartedly agree with Director Kluhl. You guys can mark that on the calendar. I think that's the first time that happened, but I do agree. The policy doesn't reflect our priorities and that. So,
Director Hayes.
I was thinking about it in reference to the poverty. The majority of our impoverished students are in free and reduced, so they would be covered under this. However, with the principal's fund, no child, irregardless of what your socioeconomic status is, would be denied a lunch.
Yeah,
Director Kluhl.
And I recognize that, and I appreciate that there is an unwritten procedure. But the fact is, our policy states no.
Any other discussion before we get Mickey up here? Well, why don't you come on up? So there are a couple of things that, with respect to this policy, I'd like you to talk about the sense of urgency to having the policy approved before the start of school, if there is one. And then could you discuss if there are any legal requirements for us to have a certain policy with respect to this issue that we're discussing, and with respect to your budget and whatever requirements you have to make sure that you pay for your program. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the federal government required that we have a policy on the books by July 1 of 2017. So what we attempted to do is put what our procedure is in place into policy, and that's what the board approved. Where we get kind of into this rock and a hard place about poverty versus can we pay for anybody's meal, food service funds cannot be used to pay for students' meals if they're a paying student and they show up with no money. We cannot support charged meals from the food service fund. My understanding is the general fund also cannot support those meals. So in order, the principal funds, the schools that have them, not every school does, but the schools that have them, they run those funds they get that money from donations. Maybe it's their pop machine, maybe it's out of their own pocket, maybe teachers donate, maybe they return pop cans or bottles and they put the money in an account. Each building runs that however they see fit. I know that a couple of them ran out of money at the end of the year, and so there wasn't any funds to pay for meals when students did not have money. The federal government just says we have to have a policy that shows what we do and how we cover that's not within food service and not within the general fund. So if we wanted to pay for it, we have to show them where we get the money and how we handle it.
Okay, so I think you said we need the policy right now, right?
Right.
And the other part, I guess we've got to interpret. Director Snyder.
Again, we hashed all this out in June, and I remember at the time, too, there was a portion of it where there were state penalties by having a negative balance when it comes to food budget. Was that correct?
We're not allowed to carry the food service department cannot carry a negative balance. I mean, if we had one, general funds would have to be transferred over to support it. They do not let us support negative balances of students. So at the end of the year, if we have students with negative balances, in theory, we could bill back somewhere. We need to get that money from somewhere. What's currently done, if there's a few students with negative balances, it rolls over onto their school fees, and it just continues to follow them as we try to collect.
Director DeSalvo.
So can you comment, do we have students that are being turned away and told you get no lunch, sorry, you're in a negative, or you have no money today, so no food for you?
Do we actually turn people away? We will set their meal aside and have them go seek funding, principal's office, a friend, or where they go. Do kids opt to not come back for a meal? Yes.
Okay. And another question, you commented about students that pay. So if you have a free and reduced lunch, I think someone alluded to that, this would not occur for our poverty identified students.
It would not occur for any of our 66% of students that are approved for free and reduced meals. Potentially it could happen to a reduced student if they showed up without their 30 cents for breakfast or their 40 cents for lunch.
Okay. Okay.
So a free student would not be denied a meal.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? I think this is a real conundrum. I agree with all of the comments that have discussed that this doesn't seem to support the way that we think about and talk about the priority of reducing the effects of poverty on education. I think the whole issue of food is such a big deal in our district. And I think it's really challenging, everything that you do, thinking about even how many calories there are and how many carbohydrates and everything there are in every single food item. And then I think what was discussed here a little bit ago was the idea of carrying over a balance, and we maintain that, and we could maintain that, say, for 2-3 years, right?
From preschool until they graduate from high school, potentially.
And then it's our responsibility to collect it. So it's $1,000 or whatever, and we've got to go collect it from somebody who's graduated, right? Is that how that works?
It can, yes.
Yeah. And yet I also acknowledge that we have kind of a sense of urgency to getting this policy passed. I wish there were something that we could acknowledge somehow the priority that we have that's been mentioned here. I don't know that we can do it at this board meeting. But it sounds like a majority of the board does support that concept if there were a way to address it legally and otherwise. Is there any other discussion? We've only discussed the one policy, and when you made the motion, I think you included both policies together. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there any discussion on the other policy, which is 303.07? Anything? I do. I think that this one actually does this, Marcia, we've discussed quite a bit, and a lot of this is being moved into administrative regulations, right? Most of the strikeouts?
Yes.
Okay. And and the intent, I think, is not only that the board president have the authority to approve these, but that this also allows you to pay invoices when they're submitted to the district without those invoices going through the board if it was approved on a contract with a general contractor or with a what's the other term? What's the other general contractor?
Contract manager.
Yeah, construction manager. And that's correct, the way that I understand that. Is that right?
Yes, the language that was put in here, if the board has approved a contract, then any payments made on that contract, we will issue immediately rather than waiting for the next board meeting. The board will still approve the payment. We just won't have to hold that check to send out. And that will help get checks out of here maybe 2 to 3 weeks earlier than what we currently do.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant move on your part. So thank you for that. Director Snyder.
One clarification is the stricken parts were not moved to administrative reg. They were literally simplified and removed.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. We'll call for the vote.
Mr. President?
Oh, excuse me, Director Kluge.
Perhaps it would be good if I offered an amendment to remove policy 305.01 in this vote and remove it as a separate vote.
All right. So you've moved to amend the motion, and the motion then would read that the policy, that the board approve the policy committee's recommendation to approve the following policy, which is 303.07, approval of payments and goods, approval of payments of bills for goods and services. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the 305.01 would be a separate motion that would occur after this.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who, was that Director Gosa? All right, I'm going to allow discussion on the motion to amend. Is there any discussion? Okay, with no discussion, the vote will be on the amendment only, which is to amend the motion to being that the board accept the policy committee's recommendation to approve the following policy 303.07, approval of payments and bills, approval of payments of bills for goods and services. Is that clear to everybody? That's all we're voting on is the amendment. Okay, Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. So now we have a motion on the table, which is to accept the policy committee's recommendation to approve the following policy 303.07, approval of payments of bills for goods and services. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? All right, call for the vote. Director, well, wait a minute.
We need
I'm
a
trying to
motion.
think here,
I think we need to make a new motion.
because what we did was, well, we amended the motion. But there was a motion to approve, which was made by Director Snyder originally. And the amendment only amended the motion. So the motion is still on the table.
Okay.
So, Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes. Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That takes care of the motion that was on the table. There is no additional motion regarding policies on the table. May I have one?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve policy 305.01, business operations.
No.
It's listed in the agenda as school food service program. Director Snyder, can you clarify that?
Well, actually, 305.01 does show as business operations school food service program. Looks like one category of that.
Do you want to clarify it?
The part we added in starts with payment of meals. I would say without, I think 305.01 is clearly business operations. It just talks about school food service.
All right, then the motion that was made by Director Kluhl was that the board approve the policy committee recommendation to approve 305.01 business operations, correct? All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
I understand everybody's commitment to looking out for students of poverty. I remember we had this long, extensive conversation when we approved this back in June. The simple fact of the matter is we have to have a policy on file. Most of students of poverty are going to already be covered by free and reduced lunch. Unless somebody has another alternative funding source that we can list in policy that will be stable from year to year to reflect policy, we don't have any option unless the board wants to say, if you want a lunch and you don't want to pay for it, it's fine by us. I don't know what other options we have. Because we can't use general fund dollars to make up for it.
Director Kluhl.
And I totally understand the dilemma, and in most cases I would say waive it, but I will not be part of a board that agrees. I will not be a member of this board that agrees to deny food to a child, and there is a child out there. I will not agree to a policy that violates our priority that we spent so much time working on from the heart. I cannot be a part of that vote that says deny.
Any other discussion? Our board secretary just indicated to me that the proper title for the policy is School Food Service Program, and not business operations is a section. So I can ask for a friendly amendment.
So moved.
And you would accept that, and Director Hayes, would you accept that?
Yes.
All right, so the motion has been changed to the policy committee recommends, that the board approve the policy committee's recommendation for policy 305.01, School Food Service Program. Is there any additional discussion? Director Mayfield.
I just want to clear, so it is as written?
Right now, the policy is as written, that you can see right there, and there have been no amendments or changes or anything to the policy as it's written. Mm-hmm. Any additional discussion? Director DeSalvo.
To try to amend this, I mean, do we add something in there like when, I think, if I remember right, when your account got low, you started to get warnings and messages, and would you feel better if we listed a tolerance or a better notification process or a tolerance of, and I don't know how we would fund it, though, that's the crux here, but I don't know how to fix this. How do you propose we fix it?
And I would say that this is the hard work of the board. We can sit here and talk about dollars and cents and budget line items, but this is the hard work of the board. This is what we need to do. I don't have an answer for it at this point. This is not an easy issue to deal with, but it's an issue of principle.
Director Mayfield.
I guess my question would be, the board wouldn't know what the issues are. Are we having an issue here that we're solving, or we're proposing an issue that may come up? I understand policies are made to solve problems, so we don't have the problems. If we're having a problem in that area, is that the reason for rewording it? Because it needs to be said to make sure we're collecting adequate funds? Or are we putting that in there to keep from having a problem? I mean, which is it? I really don't know because I'm not on the front line.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I'm going to ask either Director Snyder, can you address that, or should Mickey address that?
Well, I believe it's both, but I would like to defer to Mickey, please.
All right. Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I think. Are you basically asking, do we have a problem with debt? Is that's?
Yes. And how severe is this problem that we're having?
We probably have from $5,000 to $10,000 a year that is owed to us from elementary students who have not paid for meals. That was improved when we had 19 schools CEP. 9 of those schools will no longer be CEP, along with our 2 preschools that generally carry the highest brunt of our debt in the district.
In our 6 through 12?
In 6 through 12, we don't allow people to charge. So we have very little debt. Occasionally there'll be something where maybe a insufficient fund check comes through, so they'll have a negative account for a while. But it's very small. But we have not allowed people to charge in grades 6 through 12 since before I was here 9 years ago.
So we're mainly concerned, if I could continue to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
So we're mainly concerned about the below K through 5th grade.
That's who has the debt now. I can tell you other districts in the nation have like tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. We haven't allowed people to charge here for a long time, so I think our families are used to that. I mean, they're aware of that.
But I heard that we had $10,000 a year for K through 5th grade.
Right.
And a lot of that has been solved by the change.
Like by this.
In operations or policy, I'm not quite sure.
It was changed when the schools went to community eligibility provision, which means we feed everyone in those schools at no charge.
So how do we stand now with that change that came about? Are we having a significant enough problem to change this policy because we're having such a problem?
I guess the policy reflects what we've done for over 10 years. I've been here for 9 years. It was in place when I came. So I don't have any data from prior to that. I'm not sure how long that it's been. The policy of not allowing students in grades 6 through 12 to charge has been a long-standing procedure or practice here in the district.
Yeah, and it sounds like the problem's not there. The problem's on the lower level.
Right. So the debt we have now is the lower level, and we do not refuse those students meals.
And you had a change where you're including more schools in a covered low.
Right. We have 9 in this coming school year. We have 9 schools that are continue to be fed at no charge.
So will we still have that issue with those schools being covered financially?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I guess what I heard was we're doing this policy because we're having issues. And then I heard from you that 9 of those schools have now been taken out of that dilemma that they were in. So the question is, are we still going to have those issues with those 9 schools out? Are we changing the policy because we're having those problems? And will this remedy those 9 schools?
No, the policy is being changed because the federal government now requires us to have this in writing. So we tried to draft a policy that reflected what we have been practicing over the past years that our families are used to, and it is being added to this 305.1 because the federal government now requires districts to have a policy on how we handle students without money.
How to handle it, but not necessarily the way this is worded.
Correct. How to handle it. We can't support the charge meals with general fund or food service dollars. That's mandated. Outside of that, how we handle it can be up to the policy committee and people here in the district.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Snyder.
Just to clarify again, we are not actually, there is no change to this policy other than the number. We approved it as it's written just 6 weeks ago. All we're doing is changing the number because the number it was put under 405.01 is not the correct category. Simply all we did is add it into the end of 30.501. Nothing else has changed.
Okay, well, I assume we had the majority of the board at that time that okayed it.
It was approved on 6/26.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was a majority of the board members that were here. We could check that if you'd like.
I'm not.
Okay, you can't. All right. So, question I have, Director Snyder, if the board doesn't approve this tonight, we still have a policy. It's just the wrong number. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if the policy as it sits as 405.01 is valid.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I comment? 405.01 actually references the personnel piece of food service, and it references the union contract. So that's the reference when you look up 405.1.
All right. So there are minor modifications. Okay. Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
Well, I don't suppose that we could resolve this policy issue tonight. That's the work of the policy committee. But I'm just wondering, Marcia, what if, I mean, for years we have allowed K through 5 to charge. What would the impact be if we allowed 6 through 12 to charge?
I would have to defer to Mickey because I don't have any idea what that volume might be. And as she said before, the general fund cannot supplement the food and nutrition fund. So it's not like if they were allowed to build up a negative balance that they could come to general fund and say bail us out, because that's not allowed.
That's why I say I think it's a bigger question than we can wrestle with tonight, but it's one that we need to deal with.
Mr. Scott, did you have something else?
In my experience at the high school, I think that number would be hard to control from the standpoint of you would really be putting the food service workers on the line as far as saying who they would allow. So what balance would it be? Could you charge $2? Could you charge $3.75? Could you charge $15? Where would be the, how far over could you go for something? And they wouldn't want to put them in that position without having something to reference to be, well, they could go over by $3 or they could go over, you know, so that's one day's meal or whatever. I think there would be something to, for those workers, we'd have to do.
Anything, Director DeSalvo?
Would you like me to read the June 26 minutes from this section?
The whole thing?
Disregard this policy.
Okay.
Regarding this policy. From the June 26, 2017 regular meeting minutes, discussion of policy 405.01 meal charges. Discussion. Director Snyder explained this is a new policy that has to be approved by the board by July 1st, 2017, according to federal regulations. Snyder suggested removing the reference to My School Bucks from the policy in the event of a change in vendors in the future. Board members expressed concerns and asked for reassurance that students aren't treated differently if they don't have funds to pay for meals and receive a meal regardless of ability to pay. Kent Heinen and another staff member from food service assured the board that procedures are in place that ensure students receive meals regardless of ability to pay and that they are not treated differently in any way. They also indicated that the procedures indicated in the policy mirror the practices already in place. Heinen explained that the template for the policy was provided by the Iowa Food and Nutrition Board and were not provided by the state or federal government. On the vote, yeses, or ayes, Snyder, Hayes, Kluhl, and Johansson. Gosa and Mayfield abstained. Motion carried.
Thank you for that. It reminds me how important our minutes are. I really appreciate being able to go back and and recover discussion items, even though it's not the whole discussion, but it's really important. Was there additional discussion? Director Klool.
I guess my question is, that was the vote. Let me read this one more time. No alternate food or beverage items are provided to students in grades 6 through 12 in the case of insufficient funds. That's what the board will be approving tonight.
Director DeSalvo.
I'm thinking of I think it's A Few Good Men, where they ask them, you know, where's the mess hall and where's that in your procedures? Do you know how to get to the mess hall? Is that written in your code of conduct? And they're like, no, everybody knows where the mess hall is. It's there. So is this one of those things, or are there other things that we don't have in policy that happen every day?
I don't know if anybody wants to take a shot at that.
In public or on record.
Didn't
But
see
you
the
know what
movie.
I'm saying? Like it's, I don't know.
Priorities are important,
They are.
and we've set one.
So I got to tell a little story. I may have at that meeting, but I had been listening to NPR, and they were talking about this very issue, and especially from certain school districts in Illinois, and they were not our neighbors, but they were big districts, and it surprised me. They had a superintendent there that said that their food service people, if somebody in high school would get there with a tray full of stuff and they didn't have the ability to pay, they would dump it in the trash. And it was stunning, you know, that they couldn't, and they were wrestling with it too. And they were wrestling on NPR. How do we deal with this? And it was a national issue, but it was interesting, some of the Illinois cities that happened to be involved in it. It's tough. And yet we've got the laws that we got to kind of go by. I don't know. I mean, we're going to call for the vote here pretty soon unless there's a different type of motion. But the policy committee has made the recommendation, right? Okay. All right. Is there any more discussion on this? Okay. Then I'm going to call for the vote. And this is the motion was made that the board approve the policy committee recommendation for 305.01, which is school food service program, as written. Director Klool.
No.
And excuse me, my notes are getting very messy, so I'm going to take a little bit of time in asking the votes. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
I'll abstain.
Director Gosa.
No.
My vote is yes. The motion carries. Thank you. I think that's it for the policy actions that are required. You have a lot of policies listed for discussion items. Are you thinking that it would be appropriate to address them or to take a brief recess?
Oh, I think we'll take a recess.
All right. Then we'll have a 6-minute recess. All right. We'll go ahead and get restarted. And we only have one discussion item this evening. And I would say for you, board member candidates, normally our meetings are only about 2 hours long. I think something like that. Maybe a little longer.
That is an outward, blatant lie.
They might stretch to 3 occasionally. We did have one long one. That's true. Anyway, let's see here. We have a policy discussion, and Director Snyder, you want to lead that?
I guess. We've got quite a few here. There's quite a few of them that have no changes recommended. 103.11 Community Relations, no changes recommended by Marcia. I'm just going to buzz through them real quick, and then we can come back and anybody can talk about whatever trips their trigger. 304.10 Business Operate. Again, this is no changes recommended. 105.01 Families. This was reviewed by TJ, and he did make some recommendations, mostly just a few word changes here and there, a little bit of wordsmithing. Like, for example, in the first part, they got rid of involvement and replaced it with engagement. Family engagement activities rather than involvement. It's all in an attempt to get people more active with their students in school. Personnel 401.44 in the substance abuse policy. This one was gone over by Wendy Meyer. So there's a lot of code and a lot of things in here that are above my level, so I'll let you read those on your own. Again, 401.47, some more changes by Wendy that puts us in compliance with state regulations. And there's a lot of state code and a lot of other legal stuff in this one as well, and also a lot of it was struck out. So drug-free workplace, I think she went through this whole section apparently now that I recall. Again, more lingo as far as putting us in compliance with code. I do remember one of the things that we had talked about was we went over it pretty extensively in the policy committee was drug testing. You know, we said if we wanted to drug test somebody, do we have the authority to do it according to policy? And yes, we do. It's in there. Community relations, this is another one as far as sex offenders that just the verbiage because of changes in Iowa law. They added this, she added a sentence in there, loitering within 300 feet of the real property boundary of a public school or being in a school vehicle. And that's part of Iowa code. And then there were some other changes down the road as well that all put it within legal code of Iowa. Student conduct and discipline policy. This used to be called just the discipline policy, and we added student conduct in front of it. And again, just a few changes in regards to that. It's a long one. That one cost us a pretty penny. All right. 103.16 community relations, advertising and use of commercial support and services. This one was reviewed by Marcia, Scott, Dr. Tate, and Paul Flynn. There were some recommended changes. Basically, we just took out teacher involved and principal and put in superintendent or designee, because basically the teacher involved or principal or somebody would be the superintendent or designee, and that's language we've used in other policies. So that's really the only change to that. Personnel, general organizations. This policy, 401.51, it reads, it shall be the policy of the district to encourage employees to belong and be active in professional and community organizations. And frankly, with everybody's schedule and so busy, there's a lot of things that the district encourages employees to do, but we don't need a policy for each and every one of them. And we felt this was just a little bit of overreaching, and so we, the policy committee, doesn't feel that we need this policy on the books. Community relations, loan of school equipment, no changes recommended here. Administrative latitude in absence of policy, 203.03, reviewed by Bill Schneiden. There's no changes recommended here. Review of administrative decisions, administration, 203.04. During our meeting, there was one word in here that I was hung up on, and it said it shall be the policy of the district to allow for board review of administrative decisions. We all know the board leads by policy. It's not the board's place to review administrative decisions. So we struck that, frankly, because that sentence is unnecessary, and just left administrators may be requested to share with the board the conditions surrounding a situation and the rationale for the decision in a particular case. And that's basically how it should be. They offer information, tell us why they made a decision, so on and so forth, but we're not, so to say, putting them under a review process of their decisions. That's just not our position as a board. Administration, administrators, professional organizations, no changes recommended. And one of the questions we asked, it says the Davenport Principals Association shall be recognized by the board as a professional organization. And we said, is that still an organization? Does it still exist? Do we still use it? Yes, yes, and yes. Graduate school attendance for administrators, reviewed by Bill. There are no changes recommended. And no changes recommended for 203.08, administration, reviewed by Human Resources and Mr. Rob Scott. Actually, there were a couple changes. It was more some verbiage, and I believe there was something added in with a 230-day employee. And the only thing we didn't know at the time is who's a 230-day employee. Athletic directors. Okay. Otherwise, that seems like that's the only change. Oh, that's why it says athletic directors. There are some changes in 203.09, which is administration. This was reviewed by Bill Schneiden. Evaluation of administrators. We just removed the line, it shall be the policy of the district. Well, that's what the policy's for. We don't need to say it shall be the policy. I mean, that's why it is a policy. It's just redundant. And that's the only change for that. Policy committee made some changes with 203.11 as far as the policy manual. It used to read a hard copy, or the board policy manual shall be available in hard copy or in electronic format at the administrative office of each school attendance center, the achievement service center, and in the board secretary's office. And frankly, that's just not the case. There's one basically updated hard copy. Mary keeps that in her office. Otherwise, the district website is our main source for our policies, so we reflected that in our policy. So it simply states the board policy manual is available on the district website, and a hard copy is available in the board secretary's office. That's really the changes, because that's how we do it. The whole thought of keeping multiple hard copies every time we're changing policies, it will never happen to where they stay updated, and that's why we have them on the website. Administration, collaborative decision-making, no changes recommended. And that is it, so we can go through and talk about any of them that anybody feels the desire.
And Director Snyder, you'll lead that conversation.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And there's an awful lot of them here, so. Surely somebody has some question or comment. Was it in loan of school equipment? 103.13, it's about halfway down. No. 103.13. It's after that 103.16. I bet you that's what it is.
Well, while she's looking, Director Snyder, what would be the next steps with these policies?
They will be brought before the board for approval at our next meeting.
So I was thinking that since there's so much there, but is there any sense of urgency if a board member found one and said, I'd like to pull this out, have it discussed as a discussion item instead of a motion, most likely you could accommodate
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no sense of urgency, I don't think, on any of these. You know, in fact, for the public's information, you know, they may be sitting there wondering, well, why are you reviewing so many policies that say no changes recommended? Because we're bound by law to have a review cycle of all of our policies, and that's just how they fall. They come up at a certain time frame, and we review them, and either we make changes or we don't. But we still have to legally go through each one and either change it, delete it, or say no changes recommended, and then vote on it. So. Just to spark some conversation while she's looking, I'm surprised 401.51 didn't solicit any comments as far as it shall be the policy of the district to encourage employees to belong and be active in professional and community organizations. You're grounded. You found it?
I found it.
Fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I'm on the top of page 42 where it says support groups associated with the school, such as booster clubs and parent-teacher associations, may conduct fundraising activities if they are approved by the superintendent or designee.
What policy number is that, Julie?
103.16.
Yes. I don't get all that approved for.
So you don't talk to the athletic director?
Well, yeah.
Yes, that's the
That's
designee.
it. That's the designee.
Okay.
So it's just to make sure that they do check through the athletic director.
I was like,
I was going to say every policy or every fundraiser I've seen went through at the time Shevlin's office. So.
And the passage is a teacher involved.
Okay, good.
So they didn't have to go to. So it's
Thank you.
formalizing it.
And they do that a lot so they don't have 10 organizations out
Right,
selling
right,
poinsettias
right,
at Christmas
right,
time.
Right. Okay, I feel much better. Thank you. It's been a rough couple days. I'm out of sorts.
Is there any additional discussion?
I'm not seeing any, sir.
All right.
I would like to add if somebody goes home and thinks about something, by all means, send me an email. I'll forward it on to Mary, and instead of putting that for approval, we'll put it for discussion next month, because there is a lot here to chew on. So, and the majority of it is legal language that just puts us within compliance of state code, and so if you understand it, you're doing a heck of a lot better than me.
Is it safe to say that everything Wendy, her track changes are the blue, like light blue? They look light blue on my screen.
Yep.
Because I'm not gonna go against anything she's advised, so I will read it, but.
I was going to say, it's probably combinations. So I worked with her, and Mary and I were communicating back and forth. So we made some changes, and then we gave it to her, and so then she reformatted it.
Okay, Director Snyder, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll move on and conclude our meeting here shortly. Are there any administrative reports?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. I have 3 board requests. Are there any additional? Okay. All right, first is a board request from Director Kluhl. Date of request is August 14th. Request is for an agenda item. Request the administration to provide background on the services we provide to our hearing impaired and deaf students. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item. Need to know if we are adequately covering the needs of this demographic. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second request is from Director Kluhl, dated August 14th, an agenda item. Description of a request. Would appreciate a board discussion on whether the achievement gap is a priority for the board. How does the board define the achievement gap? Are we agreed on our definition? Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? Unless we define our target, administration will be unable to successfully target what success looks like on behalf of the board. Is there a second?
Second.
And one of the things, another question that is asked is, when would you like this information or agenda item? On this one, it's sooner than later. On the first one, I forgot to read, when would you like this information or agenda item? Yesterday. And I have to say that Director Kluhl is retiring from the board soon, and so there is a sense of urgency to addressing these, if at all possible, by the board. Last board request is from Director Johansson, dated August 14th, an agenda item, description of request, discuss equity and equality with respect to students in the district. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? Because I believe we should provide the best education for each and every student, comma, and equal access versus equitable education needs board discussion now. Is there a second?
Second.
And when would you like this? Is ASAP. All right. That's it for board requests. There being no additional business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. This meeting is adjourned.